I think that's why meditation and prayer is like so important. It's because you get to actually sit with yourself. You spend most of your day taking inputs from the world. Even our quiet times have been completely corrupted because we just fill it with noise, right?
Hmm.
Rather than just like sitting and being still with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why you feel like you need to put the filters on because there's no love for the light that's within you.
Hello, Ball Brothers. Happy New Year to everybody. Today, we're back on the podcast, and once again, we're going to talk about a couple of articles or videos that we have come across for the last week or so that we thought were interesting and thought-provoking. So, Galen, you want to kick us off? I know you just mentioned you had an
Yeah.
interesting video that got you thinking about some things this week.
Yeah, I watched this video and it was kind of going over this idea that about what is the reality of self. And I think it's the idea that, I play a different role to you than I play to my brother, or to my mom, to my wife, to my friends. Each of those is a different iteration of you. All of them are possibilities, and when you mix two of those people together, you get completely different combinations. Like you with your wife, with your friends, is different than with just your wife or your friends. And even like when, the group changes, like let's say people leave the party, right? Then, the dynamic changes altogether. And, when I was a manager for a bit, one of the things that they mention is that every time you hire in a new person, the culture changes. It's just kind of interesting to think about like how you have so many different iterations of you within you, and you can pick to be anyone at any time. It's easier when you're with certain people that you vibe with, but that you can literally just change yourself like that because you code switch naturally like that all the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
So, how do you think you change maybe when you're with your best friend versus with your coworkers? What do you think is the big difference that you're seeing? Or maybe with your best friend versus how you are with your wife?
yeah.
Maybe is a better because like both are more like close, intimate relationships. You maybe show up in different ways.
Well, it's like that idea that I have this idea that we're all like light, right? And like in the Bible, the very first thing is like first there was nothing, and then there was light, right? And the light is just us. We're the shadow with the sun literally shining on us, right? That's the only thing that really makes us real or be able to vision and see anything is that there's light there, and where there's light, there's also shadow, like the yin yang sign. And I think that like light, we are constantly filtering ourselves. So with your coworkers, there's probably like 10, 20, maybe 1,000 different filters that light has to go through before it reaches, your coworkers. Versus with your friend, you know, maybe he has like only 500 filters, definitely a lot better than 1,000. And I think that that's essentially to be loved or to be seen is to be loved, right? And I think we all want to be seen as the true light beings that we are. And the closer and more intimate you get, the closer you get to the source of the light.
Hmm.
I think that that's probably the main difference that I can see about.
So here's a question. In how many of your own personal relationships do you feel like you are, I guess, truly yourself, or like with as few filters as possible? Um,
Mhm.
and would maybe even like a version of you with your wife versus like your best friend, is that, I mean, that's still you, even though in some cases you might act a little bit differently or say something a little bit differently.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think there's anyone who's like 100% myself,
Hmm.
unless it's just with myself. And I think that's just like, I think that's why meditation and prayer is like so important. It's because you get to actually sit with yourself. You spend most of your day taking inputs from the world. Even our quiet times have been completely corrupted because we just fill it with noise, right?
Hmm.
Rather than just like sitting and being still with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that that's why you feel like you need to put the filters on because there's no love for the light that's within you.
Hmm. It's funny because, the phone thing, I mean, in some cases that's quite literally putting filters on things like with
Yeah,
social media
yeah,
and how you want to show up to the world. You may be putting certain filters, certain, edits in place because you want to present a certain image to maybe people who are anonymous out in the world who are seeing you versus, again, those more intimate, close relationships where you have less filters and they can kind of see more who you really are, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
What about
Yeah,
you? What
yeah,
do
I
you
think
prefer?
I think that's definitely very true. Yeah, I was just thinking about my own personal relationships and like yeah, I think there's just thinking about even like two people who I might consider very close friends. I might act a little bit differently just because of the way that they act with me. Where one relationship it might be like more goofy, surface level, joking around a lot of sarcasm,
Yeah.
versus another might be like just deep, we go in more deeper, more serious conversations.
Mm.
And they're both fulfilling in different ways and both enjoyable in different ways. But I wouldn't be able to bring like the jokey, sarcastic energy to that other friendship. It just wouldn't work as well. It wouldn't mesh as well. So they're both, part of me, just showing up in different ways based on that situation. I mean, I guess part of it is like it also can be kind of like a survival mechanism too, right? I mean, thinking more about like the workplace in more
Mm.
modern society. You're not going to act like you do with your closest friends
Yeah.
in the same way that you do with like your boss.
Yeah.
um,
Do you ever wonder like why that's the case? Like you don't speak like corporate anywhere else. Like
yeah.
who the frick says happy Monday or happy Friday? No
Yeah,
one.
we'll circle back on
Yeah, exactly.
that. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's sort of just become like a norm for the workplace where you have to kind of put this, in that case, a professional filter.
Yeah.
Um,
Kind of reminds me of like
because I
1984
guess,
with like double speak, you know?
hmm,
It kind of reminds me of 1984 with like the double speak. You know, you're never really being honest. You know, like that's all corporate filter is like you're just not
yeah.
being 100% honest, you know?
Well, it's, I think it kind of goes back to that survival, piece a little bit, right? You need your job for income,
Yeah.
and there's probably a subconscious part of you that feels like, well, I need to be a little more polite, or I need to be, put on this more professional facade because if I joke around too much, or if I swear too much, or whatever you might normally do in your own personal
Sure.
life, you may think that, oh, that's going to hurt my career in some way.
Yeah.
But I am kind of jealous of. I mean, I do have some coworkers who it seems like they bring more of their real, day to day personality into the workplace, and some people love them for it. Maybe some people not as
Yeah.
much, but they're not as afraid to ruffle some feathers in that way.
Yeah.
They're just there to be themselves, even if it doesn't sit right with everybody. I think that's admirable in some way, but you do have to keep an eye on it. Like you can't just do whatever you want in a
Mhm.
workplace scenario.
Sure.
Yeah, but
Do you think
have you
that
noticed that with your coworkers at all? Like, is there anybody that you think brings a little bit more like, huh, I don't know if I would have said that, or
there's some people who say like, you know, questionable things all the time, you know, but
Mhm.
um you know, I think I, you know, try to just be authentic. You know, I'll crack jokes, you know, but there's always a line, right? And I think we have all these filters in our lives because we are afraid that people aren't going to be kind. You know, you can say crazy stuff, really, and then so long as the intention of kindness is behind it, you know, that's why with your friends you can joke around and probably say things that you know you probably couldn't say at work for sure, right?
Mhm.
But it's okay because there's the agreed upon kindness between you two, right? That even if I make fun of him for being fat, or if I make fun of him or you know, he makes fun of me for losing my hair, or that's okay, right? Because there's the agreed kindness between us.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You have sort of that foundation that's already kind of pre-built, where um, there are certain things that you can say that won't be taken seriously.
Hmm.
Whereas with your coworkers in the workplace, it's more surface level.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're talking about work things and you're
Hmm.
not really digging into your personalities and getting into that level.
Hmm.
And so if you were to crack a joke, you just don't know how it's going to be received by somebody because you just don't have that relationship with them yet. You don't know, where their line is. So sometimes I think you draw that line a little bit more close than you would even normally, just because part of it is professionalism, but part of it is maybe just don't know that person well enough to know like, am I gonna, cross the line a little bit with this person?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But the you know the crazy irony is that you can't ever cross that line unless you cross that line. You
Mm.
know, at some point what's the difference between your best friend and someone you just met? You know, if that person you just met, you feel like you've known them your entire life. You've had that feeling before, and nothing. It's just an agreed upon kindness. How quickly can you get to that, right?
Yeah, Well, it's funny you say that because I think I'm a little bit more, like generally conservative, like quiet in my approach. And it takes me a little bit longer to like feel comfortable with somebody to kind of open up to like a more like, I don't know. Like I feel like I do have, kind of like a sarcastic sense of humor. But sometimes it takes me a little while to like get there with somebody. And so where I feel like, especially early on in my life, like in childhood and stuff, the people who became my closest friends at that stage in my life were ones who were just a little bit more like loud and outgoing and like probably willing to cross that line with me just to I think probably just to test the boundaries. But then that more quickly allowed me to be like, okay, I have permission from this person to be kind of the same way because they've already shown me that they're okay with it by doing
Yeah.
it to me. So um yeah, it's kind of funny how that works sometimes. It's like sometimes when somebody opens the door for you by saying something, maybe you're like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can kind of take this. Maybe this relationship will go to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? Do you like early on, like when you were making friends in elementary school, were you more the initiator in that sense, or were you kind of the same as me?
I've had my ups and downs throughout life. I think early on, like my parents still joke at me about this one for a long, like still to this day. It's like that I would go to the playground and then I'd say, "Hey, friend, friend, friend," right?
You
I'd come
say it
back.
enough times, it has to be true.
Yeah, exactly. Manifesting it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I would go back to my mom, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, look, it's my friend." It's like, "What's his name?" Friend. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of being a kid too, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you like the swings? Me too. I guess
Mhm.
we're best friends now.
Like, you-
I mean, that was really, when I was in elementary school, like if there's another kid who liked to play, Nintendo,
Mhm.
like me too, let's hang out, we're gonna be friends forever now. You really only needed like one or two things
Yeah.
that you kind of, aligned on, and that was really all you needed.
I wonder, it's like, they say that like children are like, pure, right? And I think,
Hmm.
is that not just that they are like light, true light, right? Because they have no filters. And it's just all the filters that you put on that make you an adult, right? But yet we see like millennials buying Pokemon cards like, like their life depends on it because
Hmm.
they're just trying to grasp it, empirically. I think we have had probably the best childhood. It was like the prime era of, technology had like gotten to a point it was awesome, but it
Yeah.
wasn't all consuming like it is now. And I
My
think,
wife and I were just talking about this too. Totally agree. Like maybe every generation feels like they grew up in the best time, or at least in some of the more recent generations. But yeah, I mean, we grew up with the internet, right? We saw
yeah,
it kind of come to fruition, and so it wasn't already in place. It was something that yeah, we went through the whole like dial-up stage,
yeah,
AOL and all that, and kind of saw how the internet grew up and became what it is today, and had that appreciation, I think, of being a kid without the internet. There was still kind of that, like we talked about, I think, on our last episode, just like that mystery that was
yeah.
still out there in the world. Like if you and your friend were debating something,
Mm.
I remember two of my friends had this like weeks long debate about lyrics of a song. Um,
Yeah.
and there wasn't a really easy way to look it up. You
Mm.
couldn't just pull up your phone, and so this conversation like went on and on and on,
Yeah.
and it was all in good fun, but like it was kind of fun that there was this mystery of like you could just debate this thing because there was no like, oh, let's just look it up and then mystery solved and that's
Yeah.
it. And so we did kind of have that magic of that there's still things to explore and discover, but then we got to see the internet become what it is. And I think we have an appreciation for just how far it's come today
Yeah.
and how all consuming it is, to your point. Um,
Do you think we
and
add?
even though I think millennials still fall into the trap of like getting sucked into spending too much time on the internet and online, I think it's a little easier to kind of step back and remember those times before the internet and disconnect a little bit.
Do you think that we've added more filters? The internet was supposed to connect us together, right? We can communicate more effectively. You and I could not have done this, 20 years ago. But do you think that technology instead has added more filters because there is no curiosity? Everything can be looked up, but even if it can be looked up, the irony is that is it even real? Like we thought that Teflon was great for your pots and pans for forever, right? Turns out
Yeah.
that that's not real, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. A little more dangerous than we thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. Just going back to what we were talking about a little bit before, I mean, social media has quite literally allowed us to present a certain filtered version of ourselves to the world. And, inherently, I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. It can start to get to a point where maybe you get lost in the filter and lost in like that, well, I have to have this certain image that I present to the world. And I mean, this kind of ties back a little bit, I guess, to, a subject you and I talk about quite regularly, which is like hair loss, like losing your
Mhm.
hair.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure nowadays, I feel like, for, as soon as a guy is like receding or like thinning, uh, I've seen countless videos on TikTok and other channels
Mhm.
or other outlets where a guy is like, guys, I'm freaking out. I think I'm losing my hair. Makes a video, sends it out. All the comments are like, oh, yeah, time to get to Turkey, get a hair transplant.
Yep. Yeah.
Hop on. Yeah. Time to hop on, Minoxidil, finasteride, get that taken care of. And it's like, it's just become this, oh, you need to have this certain image or this certain filter
Yeah.
um, to present to the world.
I mean,
Um,
like, there's been like the people have investigated this, where it's like even on the internet, there's like a bunch of bots, right, that just can sway certain narratives, right? Like, like a whole subreddit can be flooded with just bots that just say one certain thing, right, with enough variance that it looks kind of real, and then
yeah.
all of a sudden you swing a whole narrative because you think that's where the majority of people are going,
Yeah.
with their ideas.
Did you ever hear about that study that was done where they would bring in like 20 people into like a classroom type setting,
Hmm.
and the instructor would ask a question to the group, and people would like raise their hand when they thought it was the right answer. So instructor would ask a question, and then they'd say, do you think it's this or this? And then the audience would raise their hand on which one they
Hmm.
thought was the right answer. And in the study that they did, they had just one individual who didn't know everybody else was in on this study. And
Truman
so
Show, yeah.
yeah, and so when the instructor gave the incorrect answer, and it was a very like obvious question, um, then all the plants would raise their hand even though the answer was wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
then so the person was looking around and seeing that everybody else is raising their hand, and then they would raise their hand too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like this herd mentality of like, I don't want to be the outsider. And that kind of comes to, again, a little bit of like a survivor, probably like caveman, survivor, like I need to be part of the group to survive. So yeah, absolutely. I think if you just hear a message enough time, even from if it's from bots, you just hear something over and over, then it
You
can
start to
really
believe it.
start to sway your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Um,
we have so much input. Like, even people watching this video, this is an input, right? So please take it, whatever we say with a grain of salt, because it's only real for us, right? And then that's about it. I think, we all know what the truth is for ourselves, and that truth might work for you, it might not work for the next person. But, just like your example with the teacher, like, that person probably knows what the real answer is and feels that within themselves. And if they allowed themselves to listen to that without seeing all the input of the 20 other classmates that are showing them the other input, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Then you can actually be free. You break from the matrix if you do that.
Hmm.
Because that classroom is just, a small snippet of what, overall society looks like and
Yeah.
what we are all predisposed to want to do because we want to survive, not get kicked out and excommunicated, like Galileo.
Hmm.
So we just follow along. But Galileo was free. He saw what actually was, right? And said, I think this is what it is,
So do you think that the internet has been productive or counterproductive in terms of that type of conversation? Because at one point, like if you lived in like a village,
Yeah.
all you had was the information that was given to you by, the adults, the
Mhm.
elders of that were in the village. They may have had the answers wrong, but that was your guidance. That was your North Star was looking to those who seem to have more experience and more knowledge, but it was very confined to just this one little group of people. The internet has obviously opened the doors to so many ideas. So do you think it's, yeah, productive, counterproductive?
I think that it has greatly strengthened our mental plane. I think that we are all broken down into kind of three things: the physical, mental, and the spiritual. I think that it has probably helped us with physical too. You learn how to do cool workouts, or how to grow a beard, how to be okay with being bald. But I think that it has stripped us from our spiritual elements. And when your spirit is broken, we've heard that phrase before, then you feel defeated, even if you're in good health and your mental faculties are all there. If your spirit is broken, you've seen people just collapse because of that. So what do you call that, right? What is that underlying the force that kind of binds us? And while I appreciate that we can have this conversation, the technology has allowed us to cross physical barriers and be able to communicate. I think there's something to be said that if we were in the same room together, it'd be way different.
Yeah.
We'd be filling each other's buckets even more.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's like anything, right? There's a balance. You can certainly get sucked into the black hole, many black holes on the internet that
Yeah.
can can reinforce an idea that you've had that has been incorrect, or open the doors to something that you would have never been exposed to before.
Mhm.
So that's why, getting back to something you mentioned earlier, and something I want to try to do more of this year is meditation and spending that time disconnected a little bit,
Yeah.
because it's just so easy. It's like, bored, I got 5 minutes, I got 10 minutes, I'm waiting. I'll just pull up my phone and scroll on social media
Yeah.
to kill some time. And
Mhm.
it's time you could be spending just with your own thoughts,
Yeah.
um, and disconnecting from just constantly the constant noise that's
Yeah.
always there and always available.
Because it's like I think the internet has killed our curiosity, right? Oh, I have you know, why is the sky blue? Oh, it's because the sun, refracts all. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, why did the Roman Empire fall? You and I can't just banter. It's like, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was this. It's like, oh, it's because Nero came in and spoiled all the money, and the army came in and just ransacked everything.
Yeah.
Um, we've lost that curiosity, and curiosity creates creativity.
Hmm.
And if you believe in some higher power, or believe that we are all connected in some way, shape, or form, we have become so curious or so interested in everyone else's findings and everyone else's life, right? When if you look deep within yourself, understanding yourself, if we're all connected, can also lead to doors where you understand other people just as much, or if not more, right? Because you now understand, the most important element within your own life is your own life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if this might be sort of a good segue
Yeah.
into something I came across. So it was a article I came across about a chess like world champion, and he was in the world championship match, which they do like 12 matches, and whoever has the most, it's like a best of 12. And he was making a bunch of mistakes in the first like six matches. And so everybody was saying that he lost his confidence. And so they were questioning him in interviews like, oh, it seems like you've lost your confidence. How is that going to affect your ability to play in the next six matches? And he said, well, I'm going to play as if I was the confident version of myself. And it just got me thinking just about this idea of confidence and where it comes from. Because I do feel like some people have a little bit more inherent confidence, whereas others, it's more of a learned skill.
Hmm.
And there's this idea of fake it till you make it. And I think even the article mentioned
Yeah.
um, something about that. And I was curious to get your thoughts on, you know, has there been any instances in your life where you've just had to fake it till you make it? And do you think that that's always the case with confidence? Like, do you just have to try something over and over until you get it?
Yeah. I subscribe to this newer idea. Like it's sort of like fake it till you make it, but you actually have to believe that you are that thing, right? In order for it to actually manifest. Like it's the whole idea that if the moment you start taking steps, the rest will follow, that you have to believe that, someone who has ridden a bike, for a long time, right? Probably has more confidence on it because they know that if I do this, that X will happen. You're confident in that bridge, right? For someone who's never ridden a bike before, well, what's this cranking thing? What's that? Why is there a chain to it? Why is there, this? Why is there two wheels? How are you supposed to balance? I think that if you allow yourself to and I think this is where the meditation comes in, where you can actually start to focus and see how you think it should go, and then because you've lived enough experience on the earth to know how things more or less operate, right? So it's not hard to conceive that if I've never played tennis before, that I at least understand conceptually how that might feel, right? Just because you've held other things like a baseball bat, maybe, that you can, if you can truly believe, I have played tennis for 10 years, then maybe it can happen, right? Same thing with going to the gym and lifting a crazy amount of weight. How do you get there? Is because you have to believe that that's even possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry, this was kind of why it kind of reminded me of this article.
Yeah.
Is what we were talking about before was the social evidence sometimes can push you one way or the other. And in the article, everybody was saying that this guy had lost his confidence, and it can be really easy to take all that social evidence. This is what everybody's saying is that I've lost my confidence.
Yeah.
And then it can be so easy to believe, well, I guess I've lost it. And to turn all that off and say, no, I'm going to look back to my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
In which case I know that I've done this and I've accomplished this that gave him, that confidence back. And I think so there's kind of two sides of this. There's that experience of you having done something enough times that you become comfortable with it. It's become second nature, and that builds the confidence. But also seeing others accomplish something might make you to your bike example. It may be your first time riding a bike, and so you're not feeling confident about it. But the fact that you've seen hundreds of other people ride bikes means it's possible.
Yeah.
So you at least have the confidence to know that this is something that can be done.
Yeah.
I do have the ability to do it. I maybe just don't have the experience yet, the knowledge, but I know that it's possible.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, for those who the Wright brothers, when they
For real.
no one even knew it was possible for humans to fly.
Yeah.
To have that sort of confidence that yes, it can be done, even though there's been no evidence.
Yeah.
I think is something that's pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know if I've ever had that level of confidence. I'd love to experience that.
Well, it makes me think of this idea that it's like an existential idea of Thursdayism. Have you heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
That the whole universe was made last Thursday. So that includes all the memories that you have, could have just been made last Thursday. Who's to say that what you're experiencing isn't just, completely just popped into existence just right now? But if that means that all your memories are made last Thursday, that means that you're technically free because, those are all just created. I don't have to listen to the backstory if I don't want to. I can just, ride a bike right now,
Yeah.
Or
it's all a simulation. It's all just been plugged into my head, even though it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, that's what happened with the beard journey. It's everyone told me, it's the day you grow a beard, Galen, is the day that hell freezes over. It's that,
I know that's a perfect example of this confidence of looking at your family history.
Yeah.
You probably, you could have very easily been well, it's just not in the cards for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have the genetics to grow a beard.
Yeah.
You said, no, I'm going to throw that away. And
I'm going to change it.
I'm going to give it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that, did that kind of come from just a strong desire that you wanted this, that you wanted a beard?
Yeah.
Or was it because others were telling you can't do it, that you kind of rebelled against that?
I think initially it was that I knew I was losing my hair. So it came about where I was I really wish I could at least grow a beard because then it could balance things out. So because of that, I was well, now I really want a beard, but I couldn't grow one. So then I was is there a way to possibly grow a beard? And I found that it was possible. And the other thing that was part of it was that I wanted it to be permanent, or as permanent as we are as humans. But and I found that there was a possibility, and I think what, I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna just believe that it's gonna work. Which then got me thinking, it's because it's a flawed, test really because I have a sample size of one, right? But it does make me wonder. It's like could I have grown a beard anyway because I believed that I could? Like did I really need the minoxidil at all? And if I just rubbed my face and believed that that's what grows a beard, and just do that on a long enough time scale, would that have also came to the same result?
Yeah. I there's an interesting idea there. Like I really do think that the mind is incredibly powerful and can help you manifest things that maybe others didn't think were possible.
Yeah.
The question, in some cases, I do think there's a limit to that too. Like,
Mhm.
I don't totally subscribe to the idea of the secret. I don't know if you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
watch that
Mhm.
or are familiar with that, where you can just, very, very like think about having $1 million every day, all the time, and then $1 million shows up in your mailbox. I don't think it goes to that level, but I think if you really, really wanted $1 million and you thought about it a lot, then your mind will start to connect things and help you find ways to earn more money and achieve that goal.
Yeah. I
And
think
so, yeah, the question would be, and obviously we'll never know now, but would you, thinking about it a lot and trying to manifest it, would it have transpired in the way that it is today
mhm.
without the help of, minoxidil and dermarolling and other things that you did? We'll never know the answer to that question,
Yeah,
but I think that because you so strongly believe that you would, maybe that was a factor,
yeah.
but it also helped you look for the things that would help you get there, right?
I think, I liked your idea about the whole like it's not quite the secret. You can't just think about I'm gonna get $1 million. I'm gonna get $1 million and do nothing, right? And that your brain essentially looks for opportunities that to make that possible. I think that that's where the whole like faith plus works comes into play,
Yeah.
where you have to have faith and believe that it's possible, but then you also have to act with intention, with that confidence that we talked about, to be able to make it happen, right? Because if you just do nothing, well, nothing's going to happen. The world's
Hmm.
going to move around you, but
Yeah.
the opportunities might always be there, to reach that goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There's an interesting, you know, kind of offshoot to that article as well. Like this idea of like a Goldilocks zone too, when it comes to like something that you're trying to achieve. Like think about the idea of like if you're starting with very little and you want $1 million as your goal, to have that in your mind is a good goal. But it might also feel very daunting at the same time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's such a huge, it might feel like a huge amount. So playing in what they call the Goldilocks zone, which is like you're stretching your comfort zone without going too far beyond. It's kind of like playing tennis against somebody who is a pro and you're a
Yeah.
beginner. They're just going to absolutely dominate you and
Yeah.
crush you. But playing against your friend who is also a beginner or has maybe been playing for a few months longer than you, they might be a little bit better, but they're not so much better that you can't compete with them.
Sure.
And that will allow you to kind of stay in the game, so to speak, improve without getting so just, not depressed, but just beaten down because I can't compete with this person that I'm playing with. I don't know. It's an interesting concept of like, I think can apply to a lot of things that you're trying to accomplish in life or just like a new habit you're trying to build.
Well, do you think that confidence then comes from the idea that I've done this before? And if so, can we falsely convince ourselves that we've done it before? Like whoa, I know Kung Fu, from
Yeah, I was thinking about that. One thing I was thinking about a lot was like public speaking or like
Mhm.
giving a presentation or something. A lot of people don't feel confident doing that, and
Mhm.
that's because they haven't done it very often or they haven't done it at all before. So definitely build confidence by doing a thing over and over. But I think if you were to, like, there are some people who just are naturally confident standing up in front of a group. But if that person had to give like a technical speech on something they knew nothing about,
Yeah.
I would have to imagine that person wouldn't feel very confident either.
Yeah.
So um, I think you can. There's another study I heard about where there's like a group of students and they were supposed to play in like a soccer game or something.
Mhm.
And one group was told to do nothing. They were just going to show up in a week and play this soccer game. One group was told to practice every day. And then another group was told to visualize like playing soccer every day. And the ones who visualized did like almost as well as the ones who, so I think there is something to kind of just convincing yourself in your mind that
Yeah.
you do have the experience, or that you've thought through it, and that gives you that confidence too. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think you have to have experience to have confidence?
It's like I think of those movies where it's like, that the unassuming character, like you've just kind of written off the entire movie or show, and then all of a sudden, like at the right moment when all else looks bleak, they're like, wait a second, I've done this before, right? And all of a sudden now everything's shifted. Everyone else is not confident, and the unassuming character is now the one with confidence. And I think that,
Hmm.
if you, because what's the difference between like landing that, kickflip on the skateboard, like literally, and like envisioning it in your head? Because both of them, you're tying back to this idea of a memory, right? And we already know that memories are faulty, that you even think you can do it today, you know?
Hmm.
So I wonder if you can, falsely remember the yellow or red car or the blue or white dress,
Yeah.
to think, whoa, I know kung fu, you know?
I know, it's like having a really vivid dream.
Hmm.
Like it feels like it felt like reality in that moment. And what really makes it not reality is it just because it didn't physically happen? Because the things that are physically happening are also happening in your head. And it kind of reminds me of the quote from, I think it's the last Harry Potter book, where Dumbledore and Harry are talking, and Harry says, "Has this all just been happening in my head?" And I think Dumbledore says, like, "Of course it's been happening in your head, but why on earth does that mean it isn't real?" And again, it's just, yeah, sometimes, like you said, memories are faulty. We have actually a debate in our family, like every 6 months or so, this will
Hmm.
come up. Me and my two siblings have this memory together of being in our house when we were all kids, and there was an earthquake that started, and it was such a strong earthquake that it tipped over a couch in our living room. And the three of us remember this, and my mom swears up and down that this never happened. She
Hmm.
remembers the earthquake, she remembers that happened, but she says the couch or the chair never tipped over. And the three of us, maybe we've all just convinced ourselves because we've told this story so many times
Yeah.
that it happened, or maybe my mom doesn't remember it correctly.
Yeah.
But to us, that's a very real memory that this
Hmm.
thing happened. But my mom is convinced that it never did. So,
Yeah. So
um,
maybe that's it. Maybe you can just give yourself false memories. Because what
yeah,
the real memories aren't even real anyway. They're not even
yeah.
remembered
Just do
correctly.
an inception on yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
These are good topics. I
uh,
liked it.
yeah, yeah. Well, this was fun. That's probably a pretty good spot to wrap up for today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So. Well, cool, man. Thanks for bringing the first topic, and look forward to doing this again next week.
Yeah, chat with you next week. Catch you later,
All right,
everyone.
sounds good. Thanks, everyone.